Depression Baby. Stories about growing up in Appalachia and other things too. With my dad, Ray B. Rogers.
On August 16th, 1929, I came into this world kicking and screaming. I reckon that made me a Depression Baby.
Depression Baby is a World Songs media production. Brought to you by Depression Baby the book, available in Kindle, paperback, and hardcover, and soon audiobook at raybrogers.com. Today's episode may not be for the squeamish, but if you wanted to sustain yourself in Depression-era Appalachia, you were probably familiar with Hog Killing Day in the mountains.
To those who are not familiar with the event, it might have started with an exchange like this. "Well, Hugh, I guess it's about time to kill this hog." "Yep, Frank, it is. But let's wait for another good hard frost and I'll come over and I'll help you." Killing hogs were operations that required two things, one being cold weather. In the 30s and 40s, when I witnessed this process, a lot of refrigeration was not available, so the weather had to be just right, cool enough that the meat might not spoil, but not so cold as to be too uncomfortable for the processors. The other thing needed was plenty of help, as you will see. In those days, most people in the mountains grew a lot of their own food, unless they lived in town. During World War II, President Roosevelt encouraged everyone to have a victory garden, and even the townspeople had gardens. It was a patriotic thing to do. Having a hog lot behind your house meant that you were wise and frugal, and would have meat on the table. We didn't own a gun, so Dad had to get someone with a rifle to put the hog down. Before this occurred, a fire had to be built under a large metal barrel partially filled with water. When the water was hot enough, the hog was dipped into the hot water. There was some skill in knowing how long to leave the hog in the water, just long enough to soften the hair, but not too long, for this would start the cooking process. Dipping a 300 to 400-pound hog into a barrel of almost boiling water was no easy task, and was accomplished with the aid of a block and tackle device attached to a large tree limb or a frame of heavy timbers constructed for this purpose. Several good strong guys were needed to help with this. After the hair was scraped off with a knife, the hog was pulled back up on the frame with the head hanging down. The hog was then gutted. If you did not have a strong stomach and your sense of smell was too acute, it was time to depart the premises. The hog was again washed and lowered onto some clean planks. The hog was then cut into hams, shoulders, side meat, spare ribs, and tenderloins, etc. We used about everything from the hog except the squeal. The hams, side meat, and fatback were rubbed with salt, and Dad used Morton's smoke cure also to cure the hams. Country ham with red-eye gravy and hot biscuits gave one a good start on a cold winter morning. The backbones, which had portions of loin meat on them, were cooked right away, since they would not be easily preserved. The tenderloins were unsurpassed any way they were cooked. Dad liked the pig's feet cooked fresh and not pickled as you might see in a tavern or bar. And another favorite was scrambled eggs and pork brains. This was a delicacy savored by many mountain men. Some families even washed out the intestines, which were battered and fried. Never tried chitterlings or chitlins? Well, neither have I. Our family just didn't go that far. Killing hogs in the mountains may sound a bit crude and rude, but the name of the game was survival, and this helped us survive. Believe it or not, we had a good time doing it. There was the camaraderie, the laughing and joking while working. There was the sharing. Every neighbor or relative who helped out went home with a mess of fresh meat for the family. There was the good food, much of which was better and healthier than what we have today. And so it was with Hog Killing Day in the mountains.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of Depression Baby. And if you did, my dad has one important request. If this podcast brought a little smile to your day, would you please consider right now subscribing for free to the podcast and kindly leaving a nice 5-star rating and review on iTunes. You can make the difference in getting Depression Baby in front of a wider audience and help preserve this disappearing legacy. If you need any help with how to subscribe to the podcast, just go to RayBRogers.com and look for the podcast tab on the main menu. Thanks to our audio and musical contributors, including our friend Lobo Loco. You can find out more about him and all the rest of the music and audio in the show notes at, you guessed it, RayBRogers.com. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Depression Baby Podcast.